My name is Micah Lakin Avni. In October 2015, my father, Richard Lakin, was riding on a public bus in Jerusalem on his way home from a doctor's appointment. He was a 76-year-old retired elementary school principal, just going for a checkup at his doctor's. Two terrorists boarded the bus, began shooting people. They shot my father in the head. After he fell to the ground, the other terrorists took out a knife and started stabbing him in the head, in the face, in the stomach. They slit him down the middle, severing most of his vital organs. I arrived at the hospital, and there was a nurse there, a woman named Naila, the head of emergency services, an Arab woman. She was in tears. She told me what had happened. She hugged me. She said she'd been at my father's house a week before. He tutored two of her sons. She was with us through that entire episode, through the entire 2 weeks, and when he passed away after 2 weeks, she was there by our side. And as we spent the 2 weeks in the hospital by his bed in the intensive care unit, thinking how could this have happened, we began to realize what a tremendous impact education in the Palestinian world had on this. My father grew up in Newton, Massachusetts, where he was born. He went to Boston University, the University of Michigan. He was a student activist in the civil rights movement. He marched with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. He led freedom rides down to the South and sit-ins. Later, he became an elementary school principal in Glastonbury, Connecticut, where I grew up. He led the integration of the Hopewell School that he'd been the principal of for more than 15 years, bringing the first black children in from the inner city schools in Hartford. In the 1980s, we moved to Israel. My parents set up a school teaching English as a second language. They had students, Muslim, Jewish, Christian students all around Jerusalem who they taught. My father really dedicated his life to educating children and to coexistence, human rights, civil rights. The Palestinian Scouts Association, which is the equivalent of the Boy Scouts in the United States, scouting movements around the world, recently renamed their Scout Leadership Training Program after the terrorist who murdered my father. They put up on their Facebook page, which is followed by 250,000 Palestinians, that all Palestinian children should grow up to be martyrs, murder Jews, the way that Ba'aliyan murdered my father. They're promoting a culture of terror, and this is something that has to stop. Because my father's story was so striking, retired elementary school principal who dedicated his life to peace and coexistence, murdered so brutally by terrorists, it was covered broadly in the world press and across the United States. And yet the American government made no recognition of it. For some reason, which is beyond me, when Americans are killed in terror attacks in Brussels or in the United States or in other places around the world, the American government quickly and effectively gets involved, calls people to task, and starts to learn and understand how they can deal with it. But in Israel, for some reason, for years it's been ignored. It's been treated differently. And to me, I don't understand the difference between an elementary school principal, an American citizen, shot and stabbed in Jerusalem simply for being present on a public bus, and an American college student walking the streets in Brussels or Paris, getting shot or stabbed or blown up in an attack. It seems the same to me. Terror is terror is terror.